Hello, Sharks fans. I'm Dan Rusanowsky. Welcome to our draft week coverage for the 2023 NHL entry draft that'll be taking place in Nashville. We're really privileged to have the general manager of the San Jose Sharks, Mike Grier, here. And Mike, before we get into the nuts and the bolts of what you guys are about to go through, you've had a few weeks to think about how everything went in your first season. How do you assess what you learned, what progress you made, and how much work you still have to do?
Well, there's a lot of work ahead still. I think we're happy overall with kind of the direction we've taken the franchise and the steps we've made to kind of improve the prospect pool and some of the things we've put in place around as far as scouting and player development and things like that. So we feel like we're moving in the right direction. It's been a little bit of a whirlwind. I've learned a lot. Been fortunate to have good people around me and to help me kind of guide me through some of the things as a first-time GM. But overall, I think it's gone all right.
You've made two really big trades since you became the general manager. Brent Burns was sent to the Carolina Hurricanes, and at the deadline near that, you had Timo Meier going to the New Jersey Devils in return for a whole passel of great prospects for the future. And in one case, Stephen Lawrence, who was part of your team, came in that Brent Burns trade. Now, as you look back at that, how do you feel about what you acquired and how it helped your team?
Yeah, I think we feel good about the pieces we got back. It was almost a little bit of a changing of the guard. Moving Burnsy, it's not an easy thing. He's a beloved player here and a great guy. And so it was tough to move on. But, I think we felt like not only did we do right by the organization, but we did right by him, kind of helping him with his request to kind of move on. And then Timo thing was also difficult. He's a great player. He's a young player. Was producing for us and playing well and a big part of the team. But, I think we felt like it was a necessary thing we needed to do to kind of push the organization forward and kind of turn over a new leaf and start building a little bit of a new core and a new foundation.
60 points the regular season, first time in a long time that it's been at that level after 82 games. But looking at the non-playoff situation, you still got some guys that did get some sort of playoff experience. And I'm talking about most of your coaching staff going with Team USA and young Henry Thrun to the World Championships where they had quite a tournament. Also, Nico Sturm had a great tournament, ended up with a medal. And also Martin Kaut played for the Czech Republic. And what about the experience that those guys get in that situation to at least mitigate the fact that you didn't get any Stanley Cup playoff games?
Yeah, it's very valuable. I think whenever you play for your country, it's a whole different type of pressure. So you got to perform. You want to do well. You don't want to feel like not only you let your coaches down or your teammates down, but you don't want to let the country down. So it's a whole different type of pressure. And to play in those medal round games for all those guys, I think was a great experience. And I think they'll all grow from it and hopefully be better players from it.
One thing that slowed you down a little bit in terms of making progress during the season was dealing with injuries. Luke Cunnin, for instance, ACL injury got him knocked out for the full season. William Eklund at the end of the year showing a lot of progress. Then he had to have a surgery for the torn labrum. It's going to keep him out until training camp, I guess. And a couple of other guys, Jonah Gadjevich and goaltender Eetu Makiniemi and Nikita Okhotyuk, who you never even got a chance to see after acquiring him from New Jersey. Just give us a progress update with where these guys are at. Yeah,
I mean, injuries are always a part of it. I think overall we kind of lucked out. We were fairly healthy as a group for the most part. I think Eki's doing well in his rehab. He'll be ready for training camp, which is good. He should be able to hopefully have a somewhat normal schedule as far as strength training goes for him. Nikita, the same. We checked on him. His surgery went well, and he's already beginning his off-ice workout. So I think they're all in good shape. Cunny was back here, towards the end of the season, starting his rehab, and you could tell he was just walking around. He wanted to get back out there with the guys. You couldn't even tell that he just had his ACL surgery. So they're all good. Makiniemi's doing well too. So they all should be ready for camp and have fairly normal summers as far as training goes.
What about the prospect pool that you inherited? You've got guys like Philip Bystedt, who had a really good season in Sweden. You have Cam Lund, who started out at Northeastern University with a bang, and a couple of other players, Matthias Havel. Jake Furlong played a lot of playoff games for Halifax, too. How about the pool that you have going into the draft?
Yeah, those kids, the guys we picked last year, they all did well. I think they had good years. Even Mason Beaupet, Winnipeg had a good run. Even though he was in and out of the net, they had a good run in the Western Hockey League. Bystad was Swedish young player of the year, so he played full season with in the men's league, which as an 18-year-old was pretty difficult to do, and played pretty much held down their third line center role, and got some power play time, so it was good for him. And Jake, like you said, their team went all the way to the finals of the Quebec League and lost up to a pretty good Quebec team like you're seeing now. I think the Quebec team is the best. They get the best record in the Memorial Cup right now, so good experience for him. He did well. And then Havlid, once he got back from his back injury, he played well and played with the men's team the whole year and ran their power play. So we're really excited. Cam Lund, as an 18-year-old kid, went in and played in Hockey East, which is not easy to do, and played top 6 minutes, played on the power play, played on the first line for a lot of the season. So we're really happy with the progress these kids have made, and we're looking for more of the same coming into this year.
We were talking to Chris Morehouse and Scott Fitzgerald about a week, 10 days ago about the type of players that you're looking for in the upcoming draft. And I'm thinking, too, Ethan Cardwell, who had a really good year in the OHL, your prospect of the year. One thing that jumps out to me about him in particular is a competitive nature, but also the ability to be a leader. Are those some of the characteristics that you're really focusing on in the draft?
Yeah, I think someone's competitiveness is really important to me and to our scouts and to us as an organization as a whole. I think I think that's what wins when you get down. Obviously you have to have talent and skill, but the competitive players, the people who drag other people into the fight, are the people that end up winning at the end of the day. I think you can see some of that with Florida, with bringing in Matthew Tkachuk. They gave away a lot, especially when you just look at the talent-wise they gave away, but they brought in a hyper-competitive player who's raised everyone else's game around him. And, I think that's not only us, but I think that's what every team in the league's looking at. That's what matters when it comes down to winning time.
Well, you got 12 picks in the draft. That's the most you've had for the Sharks, at least in over 20 years, going back to the Halcyon years from the Cow Palace and the early years of SAP Center. But you've got the 4th pick, you've got the 26th pick, and the 36th pick at this point. How happy are you with the spots that you're in, and what type of excitement do you normally get around the draft, given the fact that you have such high picks in the top 40?
Yeah, it's very exciting. I know our scouts have done a really good job. I think they're super excited as well, and we feel like we're going to walk away from there with 3 really good players at the top of the draft. And we got a lot of picks, but it also gives us the flexibility to kind of move around the draft as we see fit, whether that's moving up, sliding back. We can kind of maneuver and get around if players are sliding or falling, or the draft is going a certain way. We have some flexibility there, but we're happy. We're thrilled that we get, especially with those first 3 picks. We think we're going to get 3 really good players who have a chance to be part of our core as we build this thing up. Also,
the draft is a lot deeper than people think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talent. I think every year kids are getting more skilled and talented and working on their games. So there's a lot of good players in the draft, and hopefully we'll be able to land a few of them.
You talk about the possibility of maybe moving in the draft should the situation arise. Obviously, that happens during the course of the time on the table. But amongst the players that are, I guess you could say, put in that group of, say, 5 or 6 players that everybody's talking about, you have the 4th pick overall. I remember a couple of other drafts where, for instance, Milan Michalek went 6th overall back in 2003, and he was described as being maybe the most NHL-ready player in the draft. Then I remember another time where the Sharks traded down from 2 to 3, drafted Brad Stewart, but got a 2nd-round pick. That ended up to be a Rocket Richard Trophy winner, Jonathan Chichu, because another team wanted to move. What goes into your decision about the type of player you want to pick with that 4 slot or wherever you end up? There are a number of guys in that group of 6 players that might not be here for a couple of years, but you're not worried about that, are you?
No, not really. I think, for the most part, we'll have kind of our cutoffs of where we don't want to move, down past and miss out on players where we think there's some impact players on, especially at the top of the draft, and we want to make sure we get one of those guys. So, you got to kind of weigh the value and what you're giving up and what you're possibly getting. Last year, in the spot we were at 11, we kind of thought, there wasn't a player there that we were in love with, so we figured, we could slide back and gain some assets and still get a good player. Luckily for us, it worked out that way. We were able to move back, get Bystad, and then also get London Havlet at the top of the second round. So you just got to see how the draft is falling, see how it shakes out with your own board, and if it makes sense to move back, we'll move back. And if someone starts sliding, then we'll definitely look at trying to move up as well.
You're the general manager, so it's a bit of a different role, but you've been through a few drafts before you got to the Sharks. Certainly your work with Chris Drury with the Rangers, you saw some of what could happen on the draft. Do you have any crazy things that have ever happened to you?
No, I think it's more, there's just always just surprises of people getting taken where you didn't think they were going to take, or people being available you didn't think were going to be available. And I think that's where you got to kind of be ready to act. I think the Rangers, we kind of identified a couple D where it worked out, where Keandre Miller was still there, so we made a move to get him. And then the year before I got there with Braden Schneider, he was another player they kind of identified, and he's started sliding, so they moved up and grabbed them, and now they're two of their going to be in their top 6 D for a long, long time. So I think you just got to be ready to react. It's always it never goes the way you think it's going to go, or however the mock drafts say they're going to go. There's always twists and turns, and things were always a little bit different.
Well, back in 1995, the Sharks had 12 picks, and the year before they had 12 picks. And I'm looking at the list, and in 1995, out of the 12, only 2 really made it to the NHL. The year before that, there were 4 players, including Evgeny Novakov, who's still with the Sharks organization. But is that an indication that the expectation is to do the best you can, but the hardest part of figuring out the draft is what these guys that are 18 are going to be like when they're 25?
Yeah, it's definitely, not an exact science, and it's difficult when you're trying to project 17 and 18-year-old kids what they're going to be like when they're 23, 24. It's a difficult thing, when you factor in all the emotions and skill development, where they're playing, coaching and all that. There's just so much that goes into how the kids that make it and don't make it. So I think that's been a big part why we've tried to invest in our player development. Todd Marchant leading our player development staff, and Nicholas Sundstrom in Europe's been good for Bystad and Havlet and Jacobson, who are over there, and having Tommy Wingles and Lucas Spiza here visiting, and continually working with our players who aren't, here with us every day, but also at the same time keeping tabs on our players in the Barracuda. And then, we're fortunate enough to have Mike Grier around as well to kind of be on the ice and help and talk to the guys in the Barracuda. So player development is so much a part of it, and environment is so much a part of it, whether these kids make it or not. So we'll do our best to evaluate these kids, pick the kids we think are good players and they're going to make it. And then, from then on, it's up to us and as an organization and our player development staff to make sure these kids grow and develop and hopefully become Sharks. Leading
to the draft, you've got the draft combine, and then right after the draft, you'll have the development camp here at Sharks Ice at Tech CU Arena with all of your prospects coming in. Talk about what you expect to get out of those 2 events.
Well, the combine's good for a few things. One, it's good to sit down and interview and see these kids face to face, look them in the eye, and hear what they have to say about their own personality, their game, just the way they view life and things like that. I think you can learn a lot from just sitting down and talking with someone and kind of get a feel for them that way. You also get to see a little bit of their compete when they do the physical testing. Are kids willing to push through it when it gets tough, or are they're gonna give up and kind of take the easy way out? And then also some of like we talked about, these are 17, 18-year-old kids, so you also get to see the physical makeup of the kid. Is it someone you look at and say, all right, he's got the frame to put on another 20 pounds, or you look at him and say, well, he's pretty slight, he's a skinny kid, it might be hard for him to put on the weight he's going to need to play in the NHL. So those things are all very important to kind of get a look at these kids and get eyes on them firsthand and get to know them a little bit personality-wise. So then development camp is I think it's just good to get. These are your prospects, especially the drafted kids. You want to make them feel part of the Sharks organization, get them around the coaches and the player development staff and their fellow prospects. So it's a good learning tool for them to learn about, social media, diet, nutrition, strength training. The on-ice part will give them a little bit, but that's not even the biggest part of it. I think it's all the off-ice information we're going to give them, and also just make them feel loved and feel part of the Sharks organization. And hopefully, once they're kind of around the building and around each other, kind of really send them on their way in the summer feeling like they know what they need to do and be excited about the possibility of being a Shark.
It's a real eye-opener for those kids, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, especially the ones here for their first time. You've always been one of the best players probably since you were 10 years old. And, then you get in this setting, you realize, there's other really good players out there. There's bigger players, there's faster players, and you kind of get a taste of this is a competition, while I'm learning these new teammates and new friends and new people part of the organization that I'm going to have to really push myself to make it into the NHL. There's going to be a lot of hard work that goes into it. So it's a good week for those kids. The social media stuff and the information as far as that stuff's important for them as well. So they can hopefully stay out of trouble. And, some of these kids are playing junior and things like that. So we can give them some dietary and nutrition information too. They're sitting on the bus for 7-8 hours and hopefully not just eating McDonald's every day. So we can give them a lot of information, and hopefully they'll leave here excited about being a Shark.
Well, as my hockey coach in high school once told me, you have to make the practices really hard and the preparation really hard so that the games feel a little bit easier. I get the sense from Scott Fitzgerald and from Chris Morehouse and from Todd Marchant that you guys are really well prepared. You're really excited about seeing that all come to fruition.
Yeah. They've put in a lot of time, especially Toddy. He's put in a lot of time. He's run these before, so he knows what he wants. But I think he's really excited to see everyone here and start to mold some of these players and help develop them. I think that's the exciting part. Drafting it's all, exciting, but once you actually get them in the door here, I think that's where the hard work starts, but also the fun and excitement comes into, where you actually kind of see these kids and think that if we can really help them develop, we could have a player here. So I know he's really excited, and the staff's really excited to draft some good players, and Toddy and his staff are really excited to develop these kids.
We're looking forward to seeing all of it. We're excited to see you out on the draft floor, and I want to wish you the best of luck and have fun with it.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Should be good.
We're looking forward to seeing all of you at SAP Center on June 28th for our draft party. Doors open at 3 o'clock. It's open to everybody. And for the first time ever, you'll have an opportunity to get your picture taken with the Patrick Marleau banner that's going to be lowered from the rafters just for that occasion. So make sure you check that out. Of course, we'll have all of the coverage of the first round of the NHL Draft, which will be on the big screen during the draft party, and of course, on ESPN. So we look forward to all of that, and we'll have great coverage additionally on the Sharks Audio Network with some special exclusives for all of the Sharks draft picks. We look forward to seeing you.